Welcome back to the Fantasy Waiver Wire. With me, it's your boy Tubby. With me, as always, is Lee.
What up?
You guys won't be seeing me for a little bit after this one. We'll get into that one. But welcome back to the Fantasy Waiver Wire. It's Thursday, Football Thursday. And we're back like we never left. Looking at doing Week 5 lineups this week. This is your first time listening to us, and we're just a couple of dudes, man, in the Fantasy Football League, coming on here, sharing our knowledge, our anxiety, same thing you have going into each week. We're going to ride it out all season long, right to your championship. So welcome back. Week 5 is in play. I got a proposed trade I want y'all to look at for me tonight if you're listening. And yeah, man, can't wait for the game tonight. Washington versus Chicago kicks it off. So if you have any questions about those type of lineups, especially tonight, we have about an hour and 15 minutes for the game start. With that said, man, what's up, Lee?
What's going on, man? Yeah, this is probably honestly one of the first Thursday night games I'm not that excited about. You know, they've been some pretty decent ones. Of course, the Eagles were on Thursday night, and it just seems like there's been some decent matchups. You know, Green Bay and Detroit last week was a nice one, even though it turned out to be a blowout. Mm-hmm. It was just the idea of that game was cool, and this one's just kind of like, who scheduled this? I mean, I guess they thought both teams were going to be much better than they are, and that kind of comes into play. But from a fantasy standpoint, there's a few plays at risk. I mean, there's a few players tonight that you should probably start in your lineups. Dotson being one, McLaurin another, because the Bears again don't seem to be out there on the field. Their coach is in hot water, you know, and they may give it their all tonight. You never know. I mean, football is one of those games where if you think something that happened last week is going to be consistent this week, that's very rare. There's only like 2 or 3 teams that are consistent each and every week, and it tends to be this ebb and flow. So what really could happen is the Bears decide, all right, tonight we're not going to be embarrassed on primetime TV, mm-hmm. and actually decide they want to play. Me personally, though, if I have some Redskins, I can never do that. Commanders players, I'm going to want to start. I'm going to start them.
Right.
Brian Robinson, especially because the Bears' rushing defense gave up a lot to Jaleel McLaughlin last week, mm-hmm. after Javonte Williams went out, and I would say Brian Robinson would be a must start tonight.
Brian Robinson with the must start. He looked good last week against the Eagles. He had flashes. You know, first of all, he's a big back. I forgot. You know, until they reminded me, you know, NFL, they're going to remind you about anybody's past troubles. Single time, every week until they retire. I forgot he was the guy that got shot.
Yep.
So last year he didn't really have his start that he wanted to, but he still played pretty solid. But yeah, I was like, first thing I thought, I was like, man, he's a big back. I've seen him before, but I'm like, he's a pretty big back. But yeah, man, I don't really know where to go with Washington. I will say this, the Bears' run game has gotten a lot better, at least last week. So that's what I'm curious about, and that's because I have Khalil Herbert.
Right.
And might as well get right into bringing my lineup up for this week, man.
Well, while you're doing that, I just say Washington right now they're playing the Bears, which is the 4th, lowest offense in the league right now. Then they play Atlanta, which is the 6th, and then they play the Giants, which is the worst. So it's one of those things where it's some favorable matchups for them in these next 3 games. So right now, with them being 2-2, there's a realistic possibility that if things fall Washington's way, they could win the next 3 games.
Yes,
and be 5-2 after week 7. Yeah. Then they play Philadelphia again, and then they'll be 5-3. But that's it's very realistic. For this team. Right. So this is an important game for them, I think. I think they're going to come out after the Philadelphia loss. I think they're going to come out with a little bit of something to prove.
So do you think the Bears having that really big letdown against Denver, you think they're a little bit fired up as well? Because that was pretty embarrassing. They were up like 3. I mean, they were I mean, they looked like they were rolling Denver.
Yeah,
And, I looked up
it
and
was the
it was
fumble.
28-28 on the fumble 6.
Yeah,
So I hear you on Washington. Washington definitely has, because they're coming off of a loss. You have the Bears that's coming off of more of an embarrassing loss,
right.
especially with the lead. It's not like I didn't know which team was going to win out of the Bears in Denver, so it's not like I had my pick'ems in right. But anyway,
To answer your question, those kind of things can affect the team in two ways. I mean, you should have won that game and you let it go, so it could be completely and utter crushing morale wise. Because as much as when you win a last second game, had Washington beat the Eagles in the last second and gone for 2 and won it, they would be on a high and probably carried right over into this game. The same way it can happen when you lose a game like that it could be soul crushing to them. And it just really depends on what the coach can get him fired up. And I don't know if he has that locker room right now. I mean, again, this is one man's speculation. We'll find out in an hour, what the reality is. But it's like Heberflus or whatever his name is. He's not very motivating right now. And he's kind of, when he went for that 4th and 1. Instead of going for the field goal to take the lead, he almost lost the locker room at that point.
Yeah.
It's so funny that Ron Rivera was kind of criticized for not going for 2 and the win against Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is it's easy to judge when the play's been run. It's really easy to say, oh, you should have gone for 2. Because the coach of the Bears is getting the same type of criticism for going for it, because both of them, neither one got the win.
Yeah.
So it's silly how they get treated when really it's like both of them, one went for it and one didn't, and they're both getting criticized for that. So it's like, I don't know. So these two coaches are coming together, both of them kind of off of tough losses, and it really just depends on what coach can get the most out of the players and get them fired up. I lean toward Washington in that. The spread is 5.5, and it's like, is that going to be enough for Washington to carry? They got to win by 6. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Both of these teams are electric. Well, how about this? They can be. You see like I said, you see the Bears first half last week. They looked unstoppable. They looked like they were just about to, like you said, steamroll that whole game, man. But your whole weekend is not based off of just the Bears versus Washington. I do have a matchup this week, and I want to go over a trade. I think I want to wait a little longer. I want to wait a little bit longer in the show, maybe towards the end, so I don't give conflicting advice.
I got
but I have a trade. I have a trade that is in, and yeah, man, I'm going to explore it. But for now, I'm gonna look at my matchup this week. We can go over our matchups. I got a tough one this week. I'm going against Melo, defending champion, high score a couple weeks ago, and he has a hell of a team. Now, once again, just like every week, Yahoo has me favored to win.
Slightly,
but either way, but still, every week I have like a coin flip chance of winning. It seems like, man, at the quarterback position, I think this is a toss up. Because Mahomes is going against Minnesota, I do like my chances there.
Yeah.
But Tua going up against the Giants. Yep. I mean, you have to be absolutely kidding me. This is a favorable matchup for Tua. You can only hope Minnesota put some points on the board. That way, Kansas City has a reason to keep firing. So yeah, man, I do not like that Tua matchup.
Because what you don't want is Pat being benched in the fourth quarter again.
Right.
If they're blowing out Minnesota, you're right. That's a good point.
Right. Wide receivers, man, this is not even. It's not even. I mean, Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, probably one of the better duos you can put together right now in football. Definitely really consistent. Now, Amon-Ra is nursing an abdominal injury, but he said he's going to play. He's on his podcast talking like he's going to play. So I'm definitely scared of this matchup right here. I can only hope that they get to Kirk Cousins early and often, man, but it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't take Justin Jefferson much
No,
to have a good day. So
no.
definitely scary hours going up against Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I would say
Giants.
I would say Nico is undervalued here. I think that his projection should be a little higher based on what he's done so far this year. But yeah, you're really at a disadvantage in that matchup.
Now, going to the running backs, I think this is where I may catch up a little bit, mainly because Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
He just hasn't really shown much this year down in Carolina. Chuba Hubbard is also taking carries from him. So it's kind of a split back there. Obviously, Mostert, he's had some pretty solid games up until last week. But he is splitting a little time with Achane. I know I looked it up. It's Achane. Now, I was going to make sure I was saying it right. But yeah, he has splitting time with Achane. Achane only had 8 carries, but he was still really productive. 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards. I have him in my NFL, my other league. So I think I have the advantage here. And one of the main reasons I think I also have the advantage, not because of who I have starting, what could become. This is Jonathan Taylor. He is back at practice this week, full participant. Shane Steichen, I don't think he has an ego enough that he's just going to sit Jonathan Taylor. I think if he's ready to go and he can go, and you have a Ferrari in the garage.
dude is a full participant. Every prognosticator I hear is like start Taylor if he's full practice participant this week. So yeah, I would definitely be looking at that.
So there could be some changes there. I'm thinking about sitting Tutu Atwell. Some of the changes that I am thinking about. I'm thinking about sitting Tutu Atwell. I like him because he's going up against the defense, and defense. You know the Rams are going to throw the ball, and they're going to throw the ball really quickly because of our line. And who better than to throw it to than all 3 of their receivers? Puka. I wasn't just talking about Atwell. Atwell is small, scat back, Puka, and then you have Cooper Kupp coming back. Saw him doing the drills. Looks like he's going to start. And so I think Atwell is going to take a little bit of a back seat. And I think this is where I may play Jonathan Taylor in this flex spot. So I have DK Metcalf on the bye this week and picked up Wilson.
Nice. Yep.
I picked up Michael Wilson off the waiver wire this week. Took my own advice and picked him up, man. So we'll see where that goes. Have a new running back. I'm happy. If Jonathan Taylor is back to his new self, man, I really like where this is going. Tight end definitely had the advantage.
Oh yeah, of course.
With Kelsey, that's always going to be. And if Jonathan Taylor can Waddle in the slot, he can double up on me with this Tua Waddle connection. So that's always scary hours. Buffalo, I know we don't talk about kickers often, but man, Buffalo's playing against Jacksonville. They're going to run it up, and he has Buffalo's defense against Jacksonville, which I like as well too. So, but I have Miami going against the Giants, and if they can play even half as well as the Seahawks did last week, I think I should have some success there, man.
I agree. And one thing, remember when we talked about last week was about Jacksonville and Atlanta both being in London, and that affecting their teams. Big thing today, talked about is that Jacksonville stayed there, so they're acclimated to the London time zone. They've had rest, and Buffalo had to fly over there and then get right to practice. And I'm not saying Buffalo's going to lose, but I am going to say that's going to give Jacksonville a slight advantage. Plus, Buffalo's hurt in the secondary. They lost one of their corners. Forget which one, but so yeah, it's something to keep an eye on for that Buffalo one. That might go your way.
Yeah, man. I'm really hoping so. But I'm really more so this just Jonathan Taylor, man, because I think he can change my whole season. I got lucky last week, man. I didn't put up a lot of points last week. I think I got really, really lucky, just squeaking by, beating the only person I could have beaten. To me, that's about as lucky as you can get. You'd have lost to the other 8 people in your league. So there's a lot of ways to get lucky. You could be going against Daniel Jones as well too, and see it's a and all of that madness. But yeah, man, this is my lineup for this week, man. think I always go as Mahomes and Kelsey goes. ETN hasn't done a lot for me this year, and Pierce has been blah. So I really need a running back. That's why I'm so excited to see the ideal of Jonathan Taylor coming back after I feel like, I should be 1-3 right now. So I'm very grateful, man. You want to get over to your lineup?
Sure, let's do it. Just to finish up, Melo's a tough opponent, man. He's going to be a good matchup. So good luck there. I'm playing your brother this week, so that's going to be fun. Right now he's 2-2, and I am 3-1. I got lucky with my opponent having Daniel Jones last week. Should have beat me. I did have 144 points, which wasn't bad. I think I was third in the league with that. But Daniel Jones only had 1.72, and he only needed 9 points to beat me, and it did not happen. So this week, I like what we've got going on. Kirk Cousins got a favorable matchup with Kansas City's defense. Not so much because they've got a great pass rush, but with Chris Jones and everything. But it's probably going to be a shootout. They're going to have to come from behind, and that favors me. I don't care whether the Vikings win or lose, as long as Cousins has to pass all 4 quarters. So I like the look of that. And he's got Brock Purdy right now. I don't know if he'll change any of his lineup, but he's got him going against the tough Dallas defense, which I expect that game to be a good game, but I expect it to be low scoring on Sunday night between them. The Cowboys defense, I don't see either defense giving up a ton of points in that game. Remember what was the NFC divisional playoff last year between the two of them? Was it like 19-12 or 19-14, something like that?
Yeah, it was definitely a low scoring game.
I expect it to be something like that. Olave didn't do anything for me last week, but I'm giving him another shot against the New England defense. Should be okay there. Ayuk is right now in a kind of favorable matchup with Dallas, only because he'll probably be lined up on the other side of Stephon Gilmore since Trayvon Diggs is out. So he'll probably get the benefit of kind of the easier coverage between him and Deebo Samuel. So he's already been talked to be favored. McCaffrey is always going to get his points. I don't care if it's Dallas or not. I don't think he'll get 48, but I think that he'll score in the 20s per his normal. It's just hard to stop him. We'll see with the Dallas defense if they focus on him, then one of the other weapons is going to beat Dallas. So it's crazy. I am putting Montgomery back in the lineup this week. So right now your brother is Kenneth Walker in there, which is on a bye. So I'm sure that'll change. And he has Gibbs. So it'll be interesting if he leaves Gibbs in there to go up against Montgomery in this matchup, because that's both Detroit running backs, and really whoever gets the most carries and performs the better. But after Montgomery's performance against the Pack, I have to take him, put him in the lineup against Carolina. Mm-hmm. I actually benched Pollard because of this, because my running backs are McCaffrey, Montgomery, Swift, and Pollard. And now I have Jaleel McLaughlin. So I wasn't going to start McLaughlin because they're playing the Jets, but I just want to have him on my bench in case he turns out to do something. Right. And it's hard for me to bench Swift, who's the second leading rusher in the league, even though he only got 4 carries, and you don't know how Philadelphia is going to use him. So I left him in as the flex, and I benched Pollard mainly because Pollard could have a good game, but he's going up against the San Francisco defense on the road. And I'm going to take the chance that that'll be my lowest performing running back. That's compared to what I got. I can't. That's the one I have to leave off the table. So we'll see how that goes. That's a wealth of riches to have.
Oh yeah,
it's a nice blessing. So I'm not going to worry about it. He has on his flex. He has T. Higgins playing for a banged up Cincinnati squad. CD going up against the Niners, and then Hollywood going up against Cincinnati. The Hollywood Brown does concern me because Cincinnati's struggling this year. So other than that, and then Ertz at tight end, and I have Hawkinson. Other than that, I think until we see him make changes before Sunday with that running back position, I think I've got pretty good so far. I mean, I'm favored 142 to 101. So even if he did put a running back in, I'd probably be favored by about 20. So we'll see. We'll see.
I love how he has Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. So no matter which way he goes this week, he's running up against really, really good defense. And if it's anything like the previous matchups, like you mentioned with the low scoring, man, the defense are gonna take the I think the defense are definitely going to perform well, but I don't know, man. Here's a little bit tricky for. I know you're not necessarily done, but I just wanted to make a point. I don't think Dallas is going to do well against them. I just really don't. So I think if you have that San Francisco defense, which he does, I think San Francisco defense is favored in this matchup. For whatever reason, man. I just and then when it comes to Frisco, mainly because if you watch Frisco play, man, they have so many weapons. Long as they don't turn the ball over, they're a tough team to beat because they just get it out to who they're supposed to get it out to. Just boop, 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 run McCaffrey. You already have a special running back, as it is. So they have these, they don't just have really good players. They have really dynamic players at a lot of the skill positions even at the tight end spot, every little area. Not a lot of gaps, and you also have one of the best left tackles. Right now, he's been rated like the best left tackle for the past couple years in Trent Williams. So, man, they have a lot going on in Frisco, man, and I think this defense is going to keep Dallas off the field.
I think on paper, I think you're right. I think defensively, both teams have amazing defenses. The loss of Diggs is huge, but outside of Diggs being out of the Dallas lineup, they put pressure on opposing QBs like nobody else. They had a hiccup against Arizona, but they were just destroying New England. Where I think Dallas is deficient for this game is, like you said, the offenses don't match up as well. Even though you have a more experienced quarterback in Dak, you've got a guy with Brock Purdy who's probably got a little bit of a better line. He's got a better running game. He's got better weapons at wide receiver. Dak has CD, but other than that, the Gallup hasn't performed really well. Cooks hasn't performed really well. Ferguson at tight end's not bad, but it's just not. And then they have problems on the line. Dallas does. So I think that Dallas defense might do okay in limiting what San Francisco does, but I think that ultimately, their offense will be more than enough. But we'll see. One thing that did come out of this week, talking about that matchup, is that I hope that the Eagles locker room printed out and blows up Jerry Jones' quote saying that the road to the Super Bowl runs through San Francisco.
Yeah.
And saying that this is a matchup to determine, where they're at in the league, or measuring stick, if you will. Because they believe that that's where they're, what's going to end up happening. Now, I'm sure he was just trying to compliment San Francisco, but I think he knew he was being glaringly obvious, not including the Eagles in that. And that's fine. You can do that. But when you do stuff like that, be prepared to reap the whirlwind when that becomes bulletin board material. So throwing that out there. But yeah, I think I'm okay. I'm pretty much done. My bench, I don't see my bench players substituting anybody in. I've got Lockett on a bye, Herbert on a bye. Davis has got a tough matchup in Jacksonville, and Sutton is playing the Jets. And the only other one I might swap at the last minute is Laporta for Hawkinson, but I have to ride Hawkinson out for right now before I sit him for good, because he has underperformed a little bit. The last one was really bad for me, was at 4.4 when Sam Laporta has been basically he had 22 points against Atlanta, 9 against Green Bay, 11 against Seattle. So fairly consistent for 3 weeks. And Hawkinson, I just can't have another 4-point game for my tight end. Now, the first 3 games, he was great. So I'm not going to bail on him just because he had one bad game against the tough defense. So he's going up against a defense that gives the 9th most points to tight ends in Kansas City. So I've got to go with Hawkinson this week compared to Laporta. So that's my matchup.
Yeah, man. I think I like your team almost every week, man. Until something happens in Frisco, man, they are just firing. Sometimes teams just fire, on all cylinders, and San Francisco is doing that. I would rather, you could be playing good early and often, but it only matters if you play well in the playoffs, man. So
that's true.
So, and they definitely going to make the playoffs, probably going to be the number 1 seed this year. It's just the Eagles just have a tough schedule to go through. And we were literally playing all the dogs.
Hmm.
Like no stone left unturned.
No.
All the dogs. Anybody that thinks they're good, the Eagles have to see them this year. And that's the beauty of the NFL, man, because you can't really dictate how a team is going to do until you rotate that schedule. So
Yeah.
last year somebody was getting their butts kicked by this schedule and didn't make the playoffs. Not that I don't think the Eagles are going to run into that, but yeah, man, I think that it only gets worse even from Dallas standpoint as well too. I think the Giants are going to get crushed in this division,
Hmm.
and it's going to be, I think, left standing. Washington's always sneaky. They're just always this team that just hangs around. But
Well, we
I
talked
don't
about
think
it.
they
If
match
they
up.
if they win tonight, they have a favorable schedule. I mean, they've got Chicago, then Atlanta, Giants, Philly at home, which they could possibly win that game, and then they've got New England. Seattle's a tough one. Then the Giants again, Dallas and Miami, Rams, Jets, and 49ers. So they've got a few tough teams sprinkled in there, but nowhere
Mhm.
near the road to hoe that the Eagles and the Cowboys do.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that they could win a few their share of games, and maybe even there could be another wild card
Right.
the East. It could.
Yeah.
It depends on how they play against those weaker opponents.
Yeah. Their worst week is that little. The positive is leading up to the playoffs. That's when their schedule looks the roughest. You have let's go like 5 games out, 6 games out. Dallas, then you go to Miami. Then you play the Rams, who shoot, they're going to run you around, especially if their receivers are healthy. Then you get beat up by the Jets. Then right after the Jets, you play Frisco, like you mentioned, and then back to Dallas. So those last 3 to 4 games,
Yeah, those are pretty
Washington
rough.
is going to really have to step it up, man. Because nobody has won our division back to back for a long time. So no matter what type of team comes into this division, it's always weird enough somebody else wins it for just for whatever reason. I'm not really that high on the Cowboys necessarily. I think they've beaten who they should have beaten, and they lost to who they shouldn't have lost to. That's one thing that the Eagles can't say just yet. They haven't lost to anyone. I mean, it's still the best you're going to be. Not going on the Eagles tangent, just talking about the division as a whole, man. But yeah, man, you definitely have a favorable matchup this week. Man, unless Tank Dell goes off, like he did maybe a few weeks back, or I don't imagine Williams to come right back and just be on our wide receiver 1 status. So, man, you definitely have a favorable matchup this week. I doubt if he starts Dak, that would just be crazy.
Yeah, either
Yeah,
way, yeah, it's a tough start because
yeah,
either you got to go out in the waiver wire and get somebody or bring them in. It's tough. That's a tough bench to be playing with. He's got 3 quarterbacks on his bench. He's waiting on Murray to come back. That's how badly he needs a QB. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend. We'll see how he does. But I've played in these matchups where you have a clear favorite, and then all of a sudden you get those players that just go off for 30 points, and you get 2 or
right,
3 of those, and you're right in it. So
right.
yeah, we will
Yeah,
see. It's really a lot of it, though. It's so big when you get into this part of fantasy, is you really have to look at the matchups. You
yeah,
really have to see when you make your decision. That's why I've not got Pollard. Now, could Pollard still go for 20? Sure, he
yeah,
could. He could, and I could be wrong, but I won't regret it knowing that I looked at the matchups and said, okay, look, my best bet was Montgomery against Carolina, McCaffrey against Dallas, and Swift against the Rams. I won't feel bad if Pollard outperforms all the other backs.
yeah.
So you got to go with the matchups.
Yeah, man. So we getting about halfway through the show before the game starts, and we don't have any questions right now. So I'm going to go over my trade, my personal trade. Uh, let's view the details, shall we? Um, so Chirac Soldiers offering me Michael Thomas, Palmer, Chuba Hubbard for Herbert and DK Metcalf. Very, very interesting. Um, To be honest, DK hasn't done much this year. So it's not like I'm like, oh no, I can't part with him. Nico Collins has had a better year. Just we're just going numbers, not reputation, just numbers. Then we have Khalil Herbert, who his best week was last week. And then in between there it's been brutal, but I don't know. Running backs are hard to come by, man. And Chuba Hubbard, and Tony's giving me Chuba Hubbard. Let's look at what Chuba's done. Hasn't cracked over 10 points this season. That's not good. Michael Thomas, we spoke about him, man. He's been getting some solid production, but last week I didn't really catch the Saints game like that. Let me see in the loss. Did Carr play? Did Carr play last week? Carr played.
He
Right?
did. They started him. I don't think he was healthy though. I just don't think they wanted Jameis in the game. So I think that affected the performance. That's why Olave, only had me like 4 points last week. It was horrible.
Right.
I think it was Carr that just wasn't getting the ball out with any zip. So, yeah, less than 100% David Carr averaged only 3.4 yards per attempt. I don't think he could get it downfield. I think his shoulder is really bad. So it depends on how he can go this week and go forward, whether Thomas is a viable option.
Right.
I'm telling you, I looking at the three that he's given, I don't think he's giving it quality, in my opinion. Joshua Palmer is, filling in for Michael Williams, but Mike Williams being out. But he's like the most he did was 10 points. They've got some tough matchups up ahead after the bye week. They got Dallas, Kansas City, Chicago, and then the Jets. And I think Quentin Johnston's going to be the wide receiver 2 by then. So that's me. He's like throwing out some trash.
Let's see. So
I bet you if you waited on that, he'll probably drop Palmer next week. And if he's watching, he's probably going to be mad at me for saying
that. So let's hit this evaluate trade button.
All right, let's look at it.
Let's do some deep diving, right? So they saying that season differential, but this is with 3 players to my 2.
Yeah, and he would still outperform you with you getting 3 players.
Right, man. So it's something to think about. Probably not going to think that hard about it, unless the only way Chuba Hubbard, every time they put him in as an RB1, he's never really did it. like he's been there for a couple seasons now, and he's just not really doing it, man. If you can't usurp Miles, then
no. And I think Miles is going to get his carries. I think it's going to be a platoon like Miles had to deal with in Philly. Miles isn't an every down back, and he thinks he is, but he's not. So I think that you're going to see a platoon there.
Yeah.
I think really the trade is about, for me, when I look at it, it's wide receiver for wide receiver. He has to really want Herbert's good, but he has to really want Metcalf. That's the target in this, to get Metcalf from you. And we'll look at Metcalf's schedule overall.
Let's see if this makes my team better. I'm just going to look back at my squad. Let's see where I would get better at if I had any of those guys. Wide receiver wise, just based off numbers this year, Adam Thielen's having a better season than all them guys.
That's because he had that.
Nico is our wide receiver 1 right now in Houston, and they're throwing the ball efficiently.
Crazy.
So, he's tall. He's like 6'4", 6'5". He's a big receiver, man. I actually watched the Houston game a little bit this weekend, and he lined out. I was like, when he caught his touchdown, I was like, oh, Nico's a big receiver, compared to Tank Dell, who's like, they're like night and day.
Tiny. Yeah.
They're like night and day in size.
I had picked up Tank Dell initially, and then I was like, the size is what kept me from keeping him on my roster, is because I've got better wide receivers. So it was like, I need to go for kind of, that's why, like I said, I have Lockett and
let's see if there's some counter offer ability here. So I'm going to go for Josh Allen. I'm just playing.
AJ Brown.
He's definitely
AJ Brown for Metcalf. AJ Brown for Metcalf's closer, even though AJ is outstanding. DJ Moore might be a more closer. Well, no, I wouldn't do DJ Moore for Metcalf. and that's because with Fields, you're not going to get a ton of passing yard volume, and it's just the way it is. You're going to get some, but
Give me. I'll do a counter. Give me Mike Evans, and I'll give you DK Metcalf.
So is it Evans? Hold on, go on.
Oh yeah, it's Mike Evans. He's just
Mike
on the
Evans.
bye week.
So he has Michael Evans and Thomas.
Yeah, but both of the guys are on the bye week.
Yeah. So that game against New Orleans played. That look at the rest of his schedule. He's got some tough matchups at Atlanta and Buffalo and Houston, but then you get into some meat where you got Tennessee, San Francisco, Indy. It could be good. It could be good. Mike Evans could be good. I
just like the way he's being targeted. 10, 8, 10. I mean, you can tell even in the Eagles game. The Eagles game, the reason why I like picking up players that I've watched that play the Eagles, because I've watched it intently. More than anything else I'm going to watch this week. I'm going to watch the usage of your players very intently. So when it comes to Mike Evans, I think I just like him more than DK Metcalf. DK is not really doing a whole lot. And but he's never going to trade me one-on-one for that.
Let me look at DK's schedule real quick. I just want to see what his schedule is. All right, so he's had a tough go of it the first 4 games against him, but he's put up double-digit points. Right. And then you got Cincinnati coming up, Arizona, and then you got Cleveland, and then keep going all the way down. Baltimore should have a good game. The last 3 games of the season, but 2 of those probably won't be in the playoffs. So he's got going to be playing against some tough passing defenses.
Oh, that was a good point with the playoff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that green doesn't matter or anything right now. So he's really got only a couple of favorable matchups. So they're both kind of equal as far as the matchups go. They're both about the same as far as targets go. It's really just kind of exchanging receivers and see what happens. If that's who his real target is, I don't think his real target's Khalil Herbert. Sometimes when you do these trades, you pick one player and you go, okay, I can't just offer him one receiver. What else can I throw? Okay, we'll throw Chuba Hubbard in there. We'll throw Joshua Palmer in there.
Yeah, a little fluff.
Yeah,
he's trying to nail down his squad. What did Kamara do last week?
Jeez. Yeah, coming back.
13 catches. What?
Yep. He had a good game against Tampa Bay. That was really all that Baker could go, or not Baker, Carr could go to, was because he couldn't throw downfield, so he was throwing a lot of passes to Kamara, like the old days.
That's insane.
And there it is, right there. I just went off the top of my head, but it was right there in the report. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Damn. So probably something to think about. Can't think too long because I think it. Oh. But I probably will reject that. But I probably wouldn't give up DK Metcalf unless I got a wide receiver 1 for him. And shit, a lot of people probably would take DK over Mike Evans right now, just the way things are.
Yeah, I'd kind of wait and see myself, but it's up to you. If you're not getting enough out of him and you want to just switch it up, then 1 for 1 isn't bad. But Palmer and Hubbard give you absolutely nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Facts.
So your brother chimed in. Injuries bye week killing me. I see that. We just went over our matchup, and I feel for you in a way. But it's tough. I can't.
Like 1%.
I can't say I'm not happy, but anything can happen. We were just saying that you could still throw in one of these guys. Like Hollywood Brown's got a favorable matchup against Cincinnati. He hasn't done much this year, but it could be the week where he goes off for 25. Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery both have them going in the same game, both Lions running backs, and this could be the week where Gibbs gets more of the carries. You never know. Last week I benched Montgomery because he was coming off the injury, and he goes off for 3 touchdowns and 100+ yards. You don't know. And so, it's going to be interesting to see what our matchup's like. So we'll see how it goes once we get up to Sunday, if there's any changes you can make between now and then to bolster it. But best of luck. It's going to be fun.
What's going on in our chat? Some stuff.
No,
I didn't want to. I didn't know what that was. I didn't want to expose our chat. I thought it was just saying that. Anyway, just seeing what it was. But yeah, man, it's definitely a lopsided matchup this week. But especially with, Kenneth Walker snuck in a few points this year. If you look at
Oh,
what
yeah,
he's
he's been
missing
good.
this week, you have him off a 30 piece, 18.
Yeah.
So man, I
And
still
I
think back
think
to
he's
last year when I dropped Kenneth
yeah.
Walker and my brother picked him up and he's keeping him ever since. That was one of my worst drops of the season last year. It was Kenneth Walker the third. I drafted him. I had confidence in him, and he started the season with a hernia. And I dropped him after like week 2. I think I needed somebody. He just felt like he was taking up a roster spot until he got healthy. Dropped him. He ended up having an incredible season.
My thing is I have one player like that right now that's doing that for me. And I'll say this real quick, but I do want to say about Kenneth Walker, I think he's only going to get better because Seattle knows that in order for Geno to succeed, they have to get the ground game going. And everything works when they get that ground game going. And you can see them in their victories. They're relying on Walker, and he's looking better and better. Now, I have a similar player this year in another league, and that I dropped. I drafted him, and then he had a 4-game suspension due to gambling, and then he was on the physical, the pup list. So the word was Jameson Williams was not going to play until after week 7.
Right.
That was everything that had been indicated because he had to serve his suspension, and then the pup list had to take effect, and then he would be able to play. Well, then they ended his suspension, and I'm here looking like a dumbass because I dropped him after week 2 because some other fancy toy came along. I went, dude, I could go get this fancy toy, which I might even been Palmer for all I know, or I could hold on to him until week 7. What I do, I drop him, and now he's playing this week. So I'm pretty mad about that because in that ESPN league, my wide receivers aren't great, and I could use him right now. So I'm hoping that I don't do a Kenneth Walker the third this year with him. But yeah, he's a good player. I think that's one of. I'm glad I'm not facing him this week because that would be almost guaranteed 15 to 20 points.
Yeah. Bringing up some rankings. Just look at objectively how quarterbacks have been doing this year. And Tua's at the top, man, with Herbert, close by, Josh Allen, old Kirk Cousins himself, my homeboy that rounds out the top 5, and Jordan Love.
I have Cousins and Herbert.
Yeah, you have the 2 of the top 4.
Yeah, I've been lucky.
And this is with a really poor week from Josh Allen as well, too. That first week.
Yeah, I drafted Herbert and then got Cousins in like the 10th, 11th. It was just silly. I was like, what's he doing still out there? Because it'd be good bench. And then he started throwing for 40 points a game, and it was like, well, I got to start him. Then I screwed up and I started him over Herbert and lost about 10 points in the difference. And that was the one game I lost, but still got to hang on to both of them. Could trade one of them after the bye week if I wanted to use one Herbert.
I didn't know that Russell Wilson was actually having a solid year this year. Like when you just from a number standpoint, I'm not saying that the Broncos overall look great, but like from a numbers point, I was like, he's not. I mean, it's not horrendous. 2 picks. I thought he was playing a lot worse. I haven't really paid attention to the Broncos. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the Broncos.
That's a lot of green, though. That's a lot of green. He's playing against the Vegas, which is not a good pass defense.
For sure.
Washington 12th, Miami, and then Chicago. So we'll see how Russ fares on those next 4 games.
Yeah, I was just like, I thought the way that they were playing, I mean, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, a pick. I mean, you're playing from behind a lot. But I just wonder what is the problem in Denver? Because, I think, people were carrying over how Russ played last year to this year. When I actually looked at this number, I was like, it hasn't been that terrible. It's just the Broncos have been terrible overall, man. But there's a lot. There's a lot to unwrap there. Just with the whole thing. I think once the city doesn't get behind you, I think the trade was ridiculous to begin with. I don't think any quarterback could have walked in there besides like Brady and really got the value that they gave up to get Russ to begin with. So, and they put it on these players when you should put it on the management. Yeah. Russell Wilson didn't call the Broncos and say, this is what I want, and you better give it to me.
That was almost the Herschel Walker trade, if you're an old guy like me, and you remember that, where the the Cowboys gave up Herschel Walker and basically billed a 3-time Super Bowl champion off the Minnesota Vikings draft
Yeah.
picks, which is unbelievable when that happened. And this was a similar situation. Seattle's reaping the benefits right now. Jamal Adams, several other great players that they've been, Kenneth Walker, that they've been able to bring in. So your brother said, yeah, we were talking Jameson Williams. I should have brought that up because he said I might have to face him. Yeah, and that's the thing. The thing about Jameson Williams that's scary is he's had, one catch and one touchdown. It was like a 42-yard touchdown.
Oh yeah.
But he's had nothing else in the league. So you start him this week. It is a roll of the dice because right now you've got Josh Reynolds who's been really good in that offense for Jared Goff. He trusts him. Khalif Raymond has been playing really well opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown. So how much work does Williams get this week? And I'm not trying to stop you from playing him. I'm just saying if I had him, that's what I would have to ask myself was like, is it going to be worth putting him in when they may only play him, maybe a third of the snaps because Raymond and Josh Reynolds know the offense much better. They've been running it in practice because he wasn't even allowed to practice with the team when he was suspended. So anyway, yeah, it could happen. If you play him, cool. If you don't, we'll see. Because he's projected at around 7. I think that's fair. 7 points, so you get maybe 3 or 4 catches for about 40 yards. That sounds about right. So, but we'll see. It could be bigger than that. He could do like Montgomery and have 100 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. But I think that's unlikely. But it could be a good game. We'll see.
I brought up the running backs. See how they rank this year. Look at the disparity between Christian McCaffrey. The difference. I mean, 30 points between him and the next person. Man, he's killing it. White Rhinos, man, with the pickup of the year so far, with being able to get Williams off that waiver wire. But man, he's still 0-4 because he's been going against people's best week right now and White Rhinos. So same thing with Will, Devon Achane. Another pickup just unbelievable pickup. We'll see how the rest of that goes. And yeah, man, I still think Kenneth Walker is going to finish up here as a top player. And
right below him, Bijan is having the season that everybody thought he would. It was a reach for a rookie to come in, but a lot of people believed in him, and he's really the shining light in that Atlanta offense because it sure ain't Desmond Ridder. So, yeah.
I just didn't know that they weren't even really. Again, I don't really watch Atlanta that much, but when I actually watched them, I was like, "Oh, they're not running the offense through him. Like he isn't the main person in the show. They just need him to kind of get it out there to folks." But it just never really dawned on me. You think quarterback, you got rid of Mariota, you bring him in. He went to Cincinnati, right, Ridder?
Yeah,
he was at Cincinnati. He played with Sauce. I think that was that year that Cincinnati had a really good year. And both of them ended up making it to the NFL. Obviously, Sauce was that dude in college. But yeah, there's Brian Robinson as well, too, who you mentioned.
Could have a big night tonight.
Yep, he's right there. In a crowded backfield in Washington.
Yeah. But he's the guy. I mean, when you look at the backfield, you can clearly see he's the guy. He should have a good game tonight. Yeah, I like the fact that I've got 4 of those running backs there in the top 11, top 11. So that's nice. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey had that 48-point game. So what can you do? And then, this week, Henry was kind of in the middle there until he had that went off this last week and had the 2 touchdowns, the passing and the rushing touchdown. So so Henry's back up in the mix. I think DeAndre Swift could really get a lot more points if he didn't get just 14 to 16 touches a game. And you look at that, he had 14 attempts and 4 targets in the passing game, but he got all 4 for 23 yards. And that's just, to me, it's frustrating.
I wonder what's the rhyme. One thing, every time we hit on the Eagles, I always have a small rant in me.
Oh, yeah.
I never really understand the rhyme or reason. Even after watching the Eagles do 4 games, I still don't understand what they want to do.
Right.
Just as an offer, I just don't get it. You have Swift in there, he's running well. but you have him on the sidelines. It's almost like you want to show love to Gainwell, but man, it's about winning.
Yeah, there's no loyalty.
And it's about when a player knows he's playing well, he knows, and then you're just benching him for no good reason. Man, that could have a little saltiness too, man, because he is like night and day between the way he runs the ball and the rest of the other running backs.
It is.
You know, Sirianni has to just look himself in the mirror and says, DeAndre Swift is RB1. And I know he started last week, but DeAndre Swift is RB1, and I have to give him the ball, and I will sub him out when he taps his helmet and says, Coach, I need a breather. Other than that, just keep him. I just don't understand it. It's like Gainwell a better blocker than Swift. Like, what's going on?
That is one of the things that's coming out, is that pass protection, Gainwell's better, but he's not a big dude. Gainwell's, if anything, Penny is a better blocker than both of them because he's bigger and stockier.
Right.
But we've watched all three run, and you can't use the excuse that, the offensive line makes a hole for any back, and he makes huge holes for Swift. Yeah, that's true. But look at what Swift does with that. It's when he hits the second level that Swift takes over and is just unbelievable in the open field. So he hits the hole much quicker than Gainwell. So watching Gainwell, he gets 3 or 4 yards of carry because of the offensive line. Swift can turn those 3 or 4 yards of carry into 8-10 yards of carry. That's how good he is, legitimately. And I'm not blowing smoke. We've watched all 4 games. Mm-hmm. He's an amazing back, and he's got to get the carries, especially this week against the Rams. You've got to, with their offense, you're gonna have to run the ball to keep them off the field. You don't want the Rams with a lot of possessions in this game. So the big thing for the Eagles this week is really getting that ground game going right off the bat. Stop forcing these 15-yard passes, these intermediate passes. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what they want to do. Last year they were like clear in what they wanted to do. You knew Goddard was going to get this amount of catches. You knew AJ or Devontae was going to go off. One of them was going to have a good day. And, they ran the ball with all 3 backs and, ended up leading the league in rushing and a lot of the categories and winning more so than anything else. They won. So, yeah, man, I just hate when coaches make it weird.
Yeah.
And right now, I think at times that they're making it weird. You should be lucky enough. You should feel fortunate to have a back in Swift. Because, when you can run the ball, I think that's the biggest problem with New York Giants right now. I think their inability to run the ball just sets Daniel Jones for absolute failure. And it shows that when Saquon Barkley is in, and when you have to pay attention to him, they're going out there right now like, man, we don't care who y'all line up back there. As long as it's not 26, we don't care. And I think that's the Giants' biggest problem this year. I don't really think it's obviously Daniel Jones isn't playing well, but that doesn't make him a bad quarterback. You could be playing poorly, but that doesn't make you, terrible. I think if he had his full complement, just Saquon. Saquon's such a big player, man. He's such a workhorse. He can take a lot of pressure off you. Just like, can you imagine if San Fran didn't have McCaffrey out there? They haven't lost a game. I think they lost 1 or they haven't lost. Something crazy like that since McCaffrey has gotten to the Niners.
It was what I said last year, and people laughed at me on this podcast and just in general on message boards where I said the Eagles should have made that trade. Draft picks come and go. You can get more draft picks, and it wasn't an insane amount compared to what the Eagles already had.
Right.
And not only would it, but everybody's like, oh, he's injury prone. We don't want to give all that much in it. Look, not injury prone. He's had 1 injury that he, took a while to come back from. You can't say he's injury prone, and look what he's doing. Yeah, if it wasn't for that, the 49ers would not be where they're at right now. That's for certain. Do you think Elijah Mitchell is going to take them to the record that they're at right now? No.
Right.
But one thing I want to say about the Eagles offense real quick, but while I'm thinking about it, the one thing that's kind of worrisome about the new offensive coordinator, have you seen any slant passes or crossing routes by the Eagles this year, everything seems to be
Very rarely.
either
They'll
either
AJ.
AJ doing maybe a 5-yard slant or a 10-yard in or something where it goes to him. But they have not taken advantage of any defense playing back like the Eagles get taken advantage of. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes me wonder what the OC, what Brian Johnson is doing when he's analyzing the defenses that they're playing against.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, I know that the teams are mixing things up and making things confusing, but why aren't you running some sort of short passing offense, at least, quick passes?
Right.
Because so many teams are blitzing Hurts and trying to get him off his spot, and it's working. And you don't seem to have any package in there where Hurts can throw a quick pass and get himself out of a jam to a third wide receiver, to Zacchaeus or Watkins when he's in. That's, to me, has been kind of concerning because I'm like, where's the short pass?
Right.
Everything's got to be 10, 15 yards or deep. And it's
Right.
like
Right.
that's you're playing into the defense's hands because they're covering that stuff. That they're wanting you to pass. Like teams take advantage of us. We're 10 yards off the ball. They throw a 5-yard pass.
Every
And then they can
time.
take it for another 2-3 yards.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles don't have that in their arsenal, and that's worrisome. So we'll see how they do against the Rams.
Yeah, man.
And
I think in the past, Eagles started off pretty slow. In the past 2 weeks, nobody's thrown for more yards than the Eagles. In the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be tough, man, when you are executing, but it's just like you aren't executing at every level, and it's just that the slants. Like I said, they'll throw it to AJ when they really need it. They'll send AJ on the slant, but they don't really send Devontae on a lot of slants.
No.
There's not a lot of crossing routes, and it should be there because a lot of running. A lot of people they'll have a spy on Jalen at some point too. A linebacker is always kind of responsible for him. Like, hey, don't let him get out. So yeah, man, there's definitely a lot of growth for this offense. The biggest issue I see is last year we used to be able to get those quick shots to Goddard, just right over the field.
I was just going to say
down
that.
the field, turn around. We're just going to get you the ball. And on the A.J. Brown touchdown, I was screaming, Goddard's open. Then he threw it to it was a touchdown. But I was still like, damn, But no, I think it was the Devontae Smith catch. I think it was one of those. One of those when, underneath guy was open. It still was successful deep, But I was just like, it's like we're just going away from a lot of just the easy stuff.
Right.
Sometimes, So, but there, like I said, it goes back to there's no rhyme or reason to the offense when we have. At least last year, you knew any back was going to be in there, but the wide receivers were going to do something similar. I just think it's I don't know if it's what the defense are running, so they're just like checking down and just being like, we're just going to run this. I don't know. I really don't have an answer. But it's definitely it doesn't look fluid at times, and then we'll make it hard on ourselves, like the 3rd and 11 run. It's like, why are you running Gainwell on 3rd and 11?
Exactly.
Like, some things just don't make any sense. It's like, what I know when they broke the huddle, they were probably like, what? We're about to just kick a field goal? 3rd and 11? We're just not even going to try? So we have a lot of guys that can catch the ball and run, especially A.J. Brown. I mean, he's a yak monster, man. He's a yak monster. So I feel you, man. I definitely think they need to work on some of those shorter, intermediate, just get the ball out really quickly routes, but they just haven't, man. They just haven't. You know me, I never want to see Jalen with 9 runs on the stats.
No,
never.
No,
never.
It's a dangerous matchup on the road at LA this week. So, like fantasy wise, if you've got some Rams players, I would play them against that banged up Eagles secondary, especially the receiver part. Kyren Williams, Eagles are really good against the run, but we'll see what Williams does against them this week. He's been fantastic. So we'll see how that goes. On the flip side, I think it could be potentially a high scoring game. We'll see how the Eagles keep them off balance, if they can get the ground game established and keep LA off the field. So it's going to be fun. But anyway, we got a football game tonight to watch. So since we haven't really had any questions tonight, we could probably hit it unless you got anything else.
Yeah, man. I'm always ready to watch some football.
I am.
You got anything before we get out of here, Lee?
Go Eagles, go Birds, and let's go Hurts 1IP to win over what Marine Raiders, and we'll see how that goes.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, thanks everybody for stopping by the Fantasy Waiver Wire. Even if you just peeked in for a second to check us out, we appreciate it. Hit that like, that thumbs up, subscribe, follow, whatever's the easiest for you to do. But yeah, man, Washington, Chicago tonight. May fall asleep on it, I may not.
Yeah,
but yeah, man, looking forward to another week 5. And this will probably be the last time, man, I'm going to be on for a minute. I got a little something to do. And do you see anybody, you will see Lee.
Yeah.
So you'll be seeing a lot of Lee, man.
Well, I am actually on the road the third week of October too, so yeah. I won't be around then. So we'll just have to see what happens. We'll throw some YouTube quick hits videos up.
Yeah, man. Catch us when you can, man.
Yep.
Just like that, we are gone.